Good morning. Welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. It's a pretty chilly Saturday. It's about 28 degrees out here. I want to get back on the dozer project. It's been a couple months since I've touched it, and it's getting to the point where I'm going to need it soon. So let's get started. What are the chances of this starting? Never used it in the winter, so we'll see. If you guys been watching the other videos of this dozer series, you'll know we've already overcome some pretty big things. We've freed up the left side steering clutch, that's working good. We fixed a cracked engine block. We've done a lot of other miscellaneous repairs, got the transmission really working great. The other big thing on this unit is the right side steering clutch, and I found that it's contaminated with oil and it slips pretty good. You really can't do any work with this dozer as is because the right side track will slip. Now the interesting thing is it's not clear if it's slipping from oil that it has acquired naturally through its seals, like maybe the transmission seal or the final drive seal, or is that oil in there because it leaked in through the top when the clutch cover was missing. So when I got this dozer, it had a substantial hydraulic leak from the control box right here, and that hydraulic leak was actually dripping off the bottom of the box and dripping directly into the top of the steering clutch. So what I want to determine today is that oil that's in there residual hydraulic fluid, or is it actually transmission fluid from the transmission or final drive fluid from the final drive? So the goal here is to get into the steering clutch area with a bore scope. And get a good look at what's going on in there. See if we can see any evidence of a seal leaking. Now I know people will say, like, if you've gotten a clutch wet or a brake wet, there's really no saving it. You gotta replace it. And I tend to possibly agree, but I need to give this a try first. So you can see this is just gummed out in here. It's just been wet for so long. Everything in there is covered in grease. So these are the covers that I made. These were missing when I bought the machine, which is just so foolish. These covers are so important. Everything down there is oil soaked. I mean, freaking soaked. And I need to understand, is this new oil coming in, or is this oil that's been in here? So around back here, this is a drain hole for the clutch housing, and we've got a drip on it. Right, that is clean transmission fluid, because I just changed it. Is it so simple as it's coming from here? It may not be, because you've got wetness. You've got wetness up here. Right, this whole seam is wet between the clutch housing and the transmission. And this will find its way down across here and potentially drip off of here. So it's tricky to find these oil leaks. We need to determine, is the transmission fluid, there's a seal, a shaft and a seal between this box and this box. Is the transmission fluid seeping through that seal, dripping down into this housing and coming out here? Or is it just running along the exterior here, and it's also coincidental that there's oil all over the clutch from a hydraulic leak? You won't be able to see this now, but I'll port this over to the computer. Essentially, we're bore scoping through my phone into the clutch housing here to try to see what's going on. At this point, I'm gonna head into degreasing because I can't see what the hell's going on in there, so I really have nothing to lose. I'm fitting a 1/2-inch pipe plug into the bottom of this clutch housing. This was probably supposed to be in here from the factory, but they're removed And that's pretty common on these old machines. That way when things leak, it just drains and it doesn't submerge the clutch. So that's why I'm wondering, like, even if this seeps a little bit, a seal seeps a little bit, it should run down the inside wall, collect down here, and drain out. Like, the clutch is everything in there is soaked with oil. It's like somebody poured oil in it to free the clutch up, which is possible, but we need to degrease it after that. So my degreaser of choice is going to be E85, which is 85% ethanol, plus or minus 15% gasoline. I think it'll work as a good degreaser. It's cheap enough. It's $3.30 a gallon, where brake clean is like $20 a gallon. And I think it's a really good solvent. So I'm gonna try to pour this in to the top through the side here, like that. Now I'm actually not wildly worried about fire. I believe once I put this top cap on, there's not going to be a lot of oxygen in there to work with. So, I was thinking like, oh, what if the throwout bearing shoots a spark? What if the clutch makes a spark, gets hot, whatever. I think it's kind of going to work like a fuel tank in a car, where the vapor will displace the oxygen. You pretty much create a non-combustible situation in there. That's what I think, but we'll see. I'm pretty much sitting on a bomb for this one. Some guys use kerosene for this. I was reading online. That seems to have a lot of oil in it to me. The ethanol and the gasoline really evaporates quickly. It doesn't really leave any oil behind. So I think this is a good choice, especially because it's half the price of kerosene. That's probably about 2 gallons. I can visually see a puddle of it in the bottom. I want to make sure that it's deep enough that the clutch will fling it around in there. Just fling everything. Just in case things get a little rowdy. All right, now I'm gonna go warm this thing up. I'm gonna put it in a higher gear. I'm gonna hold the left clutch disengaged, and we'll just work the right clutch and work the right brake and just get everything spinning in that solvent, get the grease flying. I don't know. She slips good. She really slips good. I mean, in third gear on flat ground, if I disengage the left side brake, left side clutch, and I release the right side clutch, it hardly moves. She don't want to move. So it is slipping, slipping, slipping. Guess we'll pull the covers off again, see what we have in here, see if that got things hot, stirred things around. I can smell the ethanol evaporating a little bit. We'll drain it, see what comes out. Confidence that I'm gonna fix this without disassembling the whole side of the dozer is pretty low. It's interesting because the clutch is still ice cold. I was slipping it pretty good. I was like, I'm really abusing this thing, trying to get it hot, and it is ice cold. Yeah. That's pretty damn clean. That's going right back in. We ain't wasting that. That tells me we're gonna have to soak this and work this more. Well, that actually did come out dirtier than it looked. So I reused about half of it. I dumped the rest of that in there. So we got about 3 gallons in here again. Half of it clean, half of it not. Based on what I just saw wiggling back here, I couldn't build any heat in the clutch. So I guess we'll go actually push some dirt with it and beat it up a little harder, see if we can get some heat in there. My thought is if I get some heat in the clutch, get the E85 warm, we're gonna, start to pull some of that oil out of the clutch fibers and out of the brake disc. It was slipping pretty good with all the E in there, but it is a wet clutch at that point. So what I'm curious is if I do this a couple times and let this dry out, is this thing gonna come back to life or not? I don't know. It's a 50-50 gamble. I just worked this thing for about 20 minutes. Still got the 85 in the clutch housing. The brake sucks. You really got to pull on it to get this track to lock, and the clutch does slip only when you're engaging it though. Once it's engaged, it doesn't seem to slip. So that's kind of reassuring. I'm out of fuel. Yeah, fuel filter, it's all full of bubbles up top. She started starving. I just put like a gallon or two in this when I flushed the fuel system. So I want to go put some fuel in it. I want to run it more. The neighbor asked if I could come over and push some piles around for him. Pushing asphalt millings and concrete and all kinds of other crap, and the clutch is doing much better. Only a handful of times could I actually get it to slip. So I had this thing, you know, second gear low, pushing them asphalt piles, and then pushing concrete in low first gear. That's applying the most amount of torque that this clutch is ever going to see. And I got it to slip a couple times, but that's it. And that's with it still full of ethanol. So I'm going to drain this now. I think once that clutch dries, we might get lucky here. And everything under here is warm now, which is nice. That's what we didn't achieve before. It takes forever to get this stuff hot. Everything's so heavy. Look at that. All right. We got some degreasing action that time. God damn. Yeah, look at this. The bottom was caked with stuff. So we're making progress here. Now we're talking. This time we got some actual cleaning action. So with the clutch drained, I I just put it in gear, and I kind of did a test I've been doing where I hold the brake as hard as I can and I release the steering clutch. Before, you could release the right side steering clutch and the dozer wouldn't even bog down. You wouldn't even hear anything. Now, it'll actually tear through the brake and try to stall the engine if you let that right side steering clutch go. That is thousands times better than what it was. That's really exciting. We don't know how long it'll last though. I still don't know, is something putting oil into that case? And secondly, you know, as clutches get hot, they tend to kind of off-gas their oil back to the surface. So this clutch may start slipping again in a month, in a year, in 5 years. But throwing 4 gallons of gasoline or ethanol in there and running the dozer and draining it is a hell of a lot easier and cheaper than disassembling this whole side of the machine. The other thing I was worried about is, how's the engine and trans going to do when I'm actually hammering this thing and using it, you know, back to back to back. It did great. Engine never got hot. Transmission never got hot, though my temperature gauge doesn't work. The trans never slipped. It never had any erratic shifting, banging gears, nothing. You can rip this lever back and forth, reverse, high, low, neutral, whatever you need. I worked this machine hard, and really not a single problem. Definitely things that could be better, but you know, for coming out of hibernation, sitting for however many years, I didn't even blow a hose. It's a couple weeks later. I let the shmoo settle out of the E85. Look at that crap. So this plus, you know, whatever carried out in the 5 gallons of E85 is what came out of that right side clutch housing just on my first flush. That is an insane amount of greasy based crap. The good news is though, this clutch works fantastic now. If anything, it actually works better than the left side clutch. You know, pushing into a pile, I can't actually slip the clutch. It just goes. It grabs really good. The brake grabs really good. I think it could use an adjustment at this point, but see, when I stick my finger up into this hole here, it does feel like potentially we do have oil or transmission fluid coming out of the transmission, or potentially the final drive. But my thoughts are, the amount of hours I'm going to put on this dozer, I could probably leave that plug out and never have to fix this correctly. And that might be the move. And some of how I'm justifying that in my head is that, you know, I can fill this clutch housing and flush it and drain it anywhere. I don't need to be at home at the shop. I can do that in the woods if I have to. Like I said in every other video, you know, I need to put, I don't know, 40 to 100 hours a year on this thing. And I really don't have that much work to do with it. So it doesn't need to be perfect. I think I'm going to be able to get away with this. It works great now. And if it ever stops working great, I will flush the clutch housing again. Like I said, I think most of the oil and crap got into it because the cover was missing. And if there is a small leak at the transmission side or at the final drive side, that leak is typically going to just run down the side wall and out that drain. It'd be unlikely that it flings onto the clutch, onto the brake band, all that stuff. All right, guys, so this wraps up another episode of this John Deere 450B dozer. Still plenty of work to do, so stay tuned. I got a couple more videos coming up on this shortly. Thanks for watching Spank Ranch Garage. I'll see you next time.